If you're building a gaming PC, then you owe it to yourself to mount a proper case fan on it. Every gaming PC needs at least one of these. That's a point we will simply not concede. And this becomes truer every day, with graphics cards getting bigger and bigger and producing more and more heat. For how inexpensive they are and how much they bring to the table, we're genuinely surprised to see case fans aren't an integral part of every gaming PC build. Even if the cooling mechanisms within the case are phenomenal, there should be at least one exhaust fan to prevent the accumulation of hot air. Some computer cases come with pre-built fans, but not all of them. That's why in this video we're going to highlight the best case fans 2019 has to offer, and then do a brief guide on how to pick out the fan most suited to your preferences. So without any further ado, let's begin. And what better model to showcase first than the Silent Fan Si2 by Cooler Master? Is it the best fan on the list? No, not objectively speaking. Is it the best looking? That's a fairly subjective criterion, but we'd still say no. It's even a sleeve-bearing model, which is not one of our favorites, so why then the grand introduction? Simply because it's the perfect model to illustrate that case fans aren't built exclusively for high-end rigs. Here's a simple, fairly inconspicuous, performance-oriented model with 1200 rotations per minute. It's quiet, comes in almost all the standard sizes, and it doesn't cost much. So if you just need a quiet and efficient fan to keep the temperature in check, here it is, the Silent Fan Si2. Now, we mentioned that the Silent Fan Si2 comes in most sizes, which means not all of them. There is no 200mm version. So here's a polar opposite from Cooler Master, the MegaFlow 200. As the name implies, it only comes in 200mm format, which makes it incompatible with some cases. But if this doesn't present a problem for you and your case, you'll find a lot to love about the MegaFlow 200. It's a very efficient model, being both quiet and powerful. It may not appear that way at first glance, seeing as it operates at only 700 rotations per minute, but the larger diameter more than makes up for this. It's even got some visual flair with either the blue or red LED light versions, but if you're not interested in that, you can just get the black matte version as well. We should also mention that it is a sleeve-bearing model, which has some implications, but we'll talk about those in the guide after the list. So if you don't know what this means, stay tuned. Coming up next, we have the Corsair Air Series AF120 Quiet Edition. This model is a lot like the Silent Fan Si2, but with a couple of key differences. First of all, it costs just about as much as the 120mm version of the Si2. It's louder by 2 decibels, which is a little inconsequential, and it operates at 11,000 rotations per minute, a bit lower than the Si2. But it does use a hydraulic bearing, which easily offsets the difference in noise level and RPM. When all is said and done, it's arguable which one of these two is better. We're inclined to give the slight edge to the AF120 Quiet, but that's only when we're comparing the 120mm versions. The AF120 Quiet doesn't come in any other sizes, so it's not a universal go-to solution, all things considered. Still, it is a great case fan, and it even offers some customization by way of replaceable colored rings around the fan that come in all the patriotic colors: red, white, and blue. Where there's a quiet edition, there's usually at least another edition to complete the dichotomy. And this time, that burden falls upon the Corsair Air Series AF120 Performance Edition. The AF120 Performance Edition is in many ways identical to the Quiet Edition, what with the swappable color rings, hydraulic bearing, and 120mm size. Yet while it may look the same, it doesn't sound the same, with a noise level of 30 decibels. It's not enough to raise the roof of the proverbial place, but it may not be the ideal solution for those looking for a quiet gaming experience. Still, what it sacrifices in noise level, it certainly makes up for in performance, with the increased 1650 RPM being much more suitable for demanding users. Now, if in addition to a relatively quiet and good performing solution, you're also looking for a model that's simply a sight to behold, then here's a little treat for you. Introducing the Corsair LL series LL120. The LL120 is only available in 120mm. It uses a hydraulic bearing type, it boasts a very impressive 1500 RPM, which becomes even more impressive given that the noise level of this model is only 24 decibels, making it one of the best models on this list with regards to speed to noise ratio. But let's be serious, that's not what you're waiting to hear. And indeed, the most distinguishing feature of the LL120 is the fully customizable RGB lighting. What's more, you can also buy it in dual and triple packs, and the triple pack comes with a Lightning Node Pro as a bonus, which is kind of insane. So if you're building the ultimate fireworks gaming PC, this is definitely something to keep in mind. Needless to say, the LL120 is very expensive, and while it is a great model in its own right, even without the RGB, it's still not worth it unless you plan to put the RGB to its full use. Now moving away from Corsair, let's take a look at the Thermaltake Pure 20. The Pure 20 is a very unique fan. It's large, available only in the 200mm format, but it's still an elegant fan. Performance-wise, it's outstanding. It'll do absolute wonders for the airflow inside your case, but it is a bit noisier than the competition, standing at 28 decibels. The main takeaway here is that the Pure 20 doesn't sacrifice any performance for the sake of convenience. It is all about power. If you need or want a case that prioritizes power over everything else, you'll find few models as cost-effective as the Pure 20. But if not, there are less noisy and more customizable options out there. Speaking of which, gorgeous as it is, this fan is only available in two versions. One a simple matte black, the other a transparent one with blue LED lighting. And if you like what the Thermaltake has to offer, but don't want it in a 200mm fan, then you'll love the Thermaltake Riing 12. We know we sure do. It's our favorite model in this video. And that's because it has it all. It's fast, quiet, stylish, and affordable. What more could you want? It has the same incredible speed to noise ratio that we loved in the LL120. That's 1500 rotations per minute with a 24 decibel noise level. And while it may not be RGB, the Riing fan still looks phenomenal even with just the LED lighting. And more importantly, you've got enough colors to choose from to fit any build. Blue, red, white, yellow, green, and orange. It comes in both 120mm and 140mm sizes, allowing for greater compatibility. And it uses the hydraulic bearing, whereas the Pure 20 fan uses sleeve bearing. The only thing that could be construed as a fault is the said lack of RGB lighting. But given that the Riing 12 costs less than half as much as the LL120, we wouldn't really say that's the case. It is absolutely flawless. And finally, the time has come to close off this list with the NZXT FNV2. NZXT is still a lesser known manufacturer, but their products don't falter behind the competition at all. They've got a rather unique look, very contrast heavy look, in this case with black and white. We usually like their designs, but we aren't too keen on this one just because the white fan is going to stand out in some cases and not in a good way. Unfortunately, there are no other color options. But once you hear what its strengths are, you may decide not to mind. So what are those strengths? Honestly, everything except the color scheme. The FNV2 is very well built. It uses rifle bearing, it's quiet and efficient with 1200 RPM and 21 decibel noise level, and it's remarkably cheap, like single-digit cheap. Two of these fans together cost about as much as most other fans in this video. The only reason it's not at the beginning of this video is that it only comes in 120mm and 140mm sizes. And with that, we're done with the list, so let's move on to the guide portion of this video. So how do you navigate the sea of numbers that is this list, with all the different parameters to arrive at the best pick for you? It's fairly easy actually. There are only 3 things to keep in mind, and we'll use this opportunity to explain all the terminologies we use in this list as we go along, so if anything was unclear until now, strap in. You need to pay attention to the size, the speed, and the bearing. The size is the most straightforward. Most case fans come in 120, 140, or 200mm formats, but there are other sizes as well. And while sometimes you won't be able to choose from whichever size you want, oftentimes you will be presented an option. For example, some cases allow you to mount either two 140mm fans on the front or three 120mm ones. When you do have a choice in the matter, our advice is to go with the biggest option available, for two reasons. Firstly, bigger fans enable better airflow without having to spin as fast, which automatically reduces the noise level. Secondly, while bigger fans are more expensive than smaller ones, a single large fan is still cheaper than two smaller ones. Put simply, it's the most cost-effective solution. Next up, we have the speed. Speed is, in this case, measured in RPM. That's revolutions per minute. And whether high or low RPM is better will depend on you and your preferences. The higher the RPM, the better the airflow will be, and therefore performance. But this will also increase the noise. And the opposite holds true for low RPM. Just keep in mind that RPM isn't the only factor that determines how efficient a fan is. Size and design play just as crucial a role here, so unless you're shooting for the very best performance possible, you can pretty much ignore RPMs. Also, as a side note, when we gave the noise levels in this video in decibels, we were referring to A-weighted decibels, which basically means adjusted for the human ear. Now, the thing that was most likely to have caused problems previously was the type of bearings, so let's talk about that. The type of bearing can affect both performance and noise, and in the case of a case fan, you can encounter four types of bearing: sleeve, ball, rifle, and hydraulic. Sleeve-bearing fans are the cheapest and most commonly used. They don't perform well in high temperatures or in horizontal position, which makes them perfect for computer cases, but they still tend to have a shorter lifespan. Ball-bearing fans are quieter and more durable, and don't mind being placed horizontally. They're very high-end in the world of fans, but this is also why you don't see them very often, and why there are none in this video. They cost a lot to manufacture. Rifle-bearing fans present somewhat of a middle ground between sleeve and ball-bearing fans. They're quiet, durable, and can handle the horizontal alignment, all the while not costing as much as the latter. And last, but certainly not least, we have the hydraulic bearing fans. These are basically sleeve bearing fans but better, as they run quieter and last longer thanks to the improved self-lubrication of the fan. Overall, you don't have to worry yourself with the bearing type too much. It's not really something you need to lose sleep over. In our opinion, hydraulic bearings are the best all-around choice. They last long, run quietly, and don't cost a lot. But other bearings are good as well, so long as the price works out. Even sleeve bearing fans aren't really that bad, they just may get a little louder over time due to wear and tear. And before we wrap things up, we'd also like to address the question of how many case fans you actually need. How many is too many? Again, it depends on the kind of system you're running and even on where you live. Ambient temperature is really a thing, and it has an effect on the overall airflow. In general, though, we'd say you'd need two: an intake fan to draw the cooler in and an exhaust fan to push it out. At the very least, you need the exhaust fan, and no, the PSU fan does not count. After that, the sky's the limit. Like we've said, some gaming cases come with pre-installed fans, and it's not all that rare to find ones with even as many as 3 pre-installed fans. There's nothing wrong with installing more fans than you need, especially LED or RGB fans, just to make the case look that much cooler. Pun intended. And that about does it for this video. We hope you liked the list. We tried our best to fill it with models that are not only the best of the best, but also varied enough to accommodate all sorts of preferences. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Comment if you like. In particular, we'd like to know what your thoughts are on case fans and what your before and after experiences with them are like. Also, if you're in need of an awesome gaming case, we have a video just like this one, except we talk about gaming cases. The link is in the description. In the meantime, may your games be fun and your losses few. And as always, we'll see you next time on Gaming Scan.